This novel really needs no introduction, but I will give you one anyways. The Castle of Otranto is a 1764 novel by one Horace Walpole. It is considered the first Gothic novel, being horror in a medieval structure, hence the Gothic from the Gothic architecture, that's the typical medieval structure, right, that everyone knows. Though in this case, it is actually a medieval setting. It's being historical fiction of sorts. I already did a video on the Castle of Otranto where I translated the first 3 sentences and the title and chapter 1, that part as well, into the Gothic language, just kind of as a Gothic squared project for my Gothic language class. So you can go and watch that if you are interested in some philological exercise and enjoyment. But back to the novel. The release of this novel is right around the time of the early signs of life of Romanticism, which deals with the fantastic in a way the Gothic novel fits nicely into with such a movement. I didn't read this novel when I took a class on Romanticism, but if you were to take a class on Gothic literature, I can almost guarantee you'd read this since it is, again, considered the first. I ended up reading Goethe instead, which is a good replacement, but still. This will contain what are termed spoilers, as this allows for a more thorough analysis. I generally don't do spoiler-free or spoiler-filled stuff, but this novel is so old anyways. And again, this isn't going to be an in-depth analysis. So this opens actually with a fine sonnet by Walpole, the one he dedicated the story to, Lady Mary Coke. That's who the sonnet is dedicated to as well. The story itself is actually very short. It's less than 100 pages in the Pain and Good Classics version I had. And it also starts with Manfred, Prince of Otranto, who has 2 children, Matilda, who is 18, and Conrad, 3 years her junior. Manfred's son, this Conrad, is, he's given a bunch of affection by his father, though he is of poor health, or he is ugly, or whatever homely means, right? He doesn't care for his daughter, Manfred, only his heir, as he seems to be tied up in some prophecy of inheritance. Conrad is set to be married to the Princess Isabella of Vicenza, but ends up being crushed beneath a giant helmet near the beginning of the story. A servant points out the Titanic helmet resembles that of a giant statue near the church. He gets punished for pointing this out. He ostracizes his wife, Hippolyta, and attempts to fix a disastrous engagement, with his line by proposing to marry Isabella himself. This is Manfred, of course. She is, of course, not very excited about this. She was resigned to her spousal of arranged marriage with Conrad, and her felicity lacking fate with Conrad. But the man she views as a father is rather grotesque to her. She attempts to escape and is aided by Theodore, who identified the helmet. He is a peasant, or so it seems. He is caught and accused of sorcery by Manfred, and when he is to be executed, he takes off his shirt. Jerome, the local friar, who is of noble stock, recognizes a mark upon Theodore, one that means Jerome is Theodore's father. He begs for the boy to be spared, but Jerome is hiding the princess, so who will he give up, really? Knights come in to press Frederick's claim to the castle. This is Isabella's father, by the way. A big to-do and is made, and the story approaches its climax as Theodore faces off against a knight, and after injuring him, finds out it is Frederick. And they then stop fighting and talk. Frederick falls in love with Matilda, and Manfred maneuvers to make a deal where he and Frederick marry each other's daughters. Frederick agrees but backs out after a portent from a skeletal apparition. The story climaxes as Manfred, suspecting a tryst between Isabella and Theodore in the church, comes and stabs the woman he finds Theodore with. It turns out to be his daughter, Matilda. She dies, and Manfred retires to religion after Theodore is revealed to be the true heir of the castle, and a giant ghost declares the prophecy fulfilled, resulting in the shattering of the castle walls. Isabella marries the sorrowful Theodore as well. There is definitely a bunch of archaic languages, such as thou art, for example. It's not anything beyond these forms of singular you and forms of to be, though. And I wasn't expecting an actual medieval setting, but I'd wager this is probably about the 13th century or so. I found this to be a pleasant surprise. Gothic, this definitely feels Gothic in the way of secret passages and trapdoors, doors closing upon themselves, creaking hinges, yada yada. It prefigures this with the supernatural, but again, it feels like a response to the ruined medieval structures and in this somewhat early modern period. But they're more alive in this story since it is medieval, right? In fact, and actually, the novel even plays at being a lost medieval work that was recovered, and this was apparently believed until Walpole said it was actually his creation. But of course, there are other influences, would be the ghost in Shakespeare's Hamlet, as well as the themes of revenge and succession there as well. There's more to be studied as well by me, and I'm sure other people have done it. And also this idea of giant size, like why giant? You kind of see this in Lovecraft as well with like, I believe a giant elbow or something like that. There's a giant vampire in was it the oh, I can't remember exactly which story it is right now, but also there is a queer analysis of the story involving Manfred's fear paralleling that of someone in the closet, his misogyny being a projection of more manliness to compensate for his queerness. This would also apparently tie into the author's own sexuality. And I was surprised by the romance of it, actually. It doesn't go really into the dry realism of the time in many later Gothic novels. I'd heard generally bad criticism of the book, so I was pleasantly surprised by my enjoyment, because I actually really enjoyed this. Maybe my individual enjoyment of medieval romance aided in this. Plus, it's short. The pace is accurately described as breathless by Michael Garner. And I was introduced to this text by Michael Moorcock and H.P. Lovecraft and their respective famous essays, in the likes of Walter Scott, actually, as well, who highly praise Walpole's story, which was written apparently only in 8 days, and I believe inspired by an actual, location, the Strawberry House, I believe is what it's called. So, and a dream as well. So, very Gothic for you. Anyways, this is my thoughts, very brief thoughts on the Castle of Otranto, and I'm Liam from Liam's Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.